So a lot of us wait too long to get nice movement in our junipers. And then by that time, it's a little bit too late. So today I'm going to show you how to get some nice movement so you can set up your juniper for future success. Hey everyone, it's Clive here and welcome back to the channel. So today is fairly simple. We are trying to set up the foundation of this juniper. So we're not trying to make it look pretty or anything like that. All we want to do is start getting some movement and then we're going to allow it to grow. So the nice thing is when you take a fairly young juniper, it's exceptionally flexible. It's very, very forgiving. So we can really be quite harsh at this stage and we can really get some nice movement in the juniper. Cool, so at this point you can see that we kind of want to just clean it up just a touch. We're not going to clean up too much, but this is just going to allow us to get that wire on a bit easier. And then the main focus is we want to wire up the main stem of the tree. So for instance, we could leave some of the bottom branches, which I think I might do, but then we also might end up removing them because as we wire, things are going to shift and they're going to kind of be in a different position. So then we may want to remove some stuff. But for instance, I don't know if you can see here, this is a really nice branch right at the bottom. It's growing directly at the bottom of the base. And this is what we call a sacrificial branch. So we could potentially keep this branch on, which is going to allow it to thicken at the bottom of the base of the tree. And when the base of the tree is thickened up nicely, we can remove this at a later stage. So I'm going to kind of just allow this to grow as long as possible. But again, you know, you can also remove it at this stage. It just depends on how thick of a base you want and how much time you want to take to develop your tree. So you can see, I was talking about how it's so flexible. So you can almost test the flexibility before you wire. You can see it's exceptionally flexible. But I'm just going to start by removing all these small little buds just over here. And I'm going to basically come in and kind of work on leaving all the main branches. So I'm just removing some of these smaller buds. Not too much. This is the whole point of this is just to get some wire on the tree. But a lot of us don't know this. We think, you know, these trees just grow naturally and they have these beautiful shapes naturally, but that's not the case. So if I'd allowed this tree to just grow, basically it's just going to look like a Christmas tree. It's going to grow straight up and there's going to be no twists and turns in the trunk of the tree. So it's not going to look too attractive. Again, sometimes a nice straight trunk isn't bad, but in this case, I've got so many of these, it'll be kind of nice to experiment with a few, do some different stuff with them. Perfect. So you can see I've just tied it up a little bit. And now I'm going to get some wire on it and we'll kind of take it from there. So if we wait any longer, the trunk is just going to start becoming quite brittle. It's going to stiffen, and this is just going to be so much harder to get those bends in. So this is really why we do it a lot earlier on. You know, we kind of, instead of forcing it, we're going to kind of now just guide it. So in terms of, you know, the direction we want to bend the tree and so on, I'm basically going to first just put some wire on, and then from there I'll kind of decide on how I want to bend this. So I'm just going to grab some wire. So a nice kind of tip, this is a bit of like, you know, when wiring, it's a bit of problem solving as you go. But a really nice tip is if I bend this wire and the branch will move, but you can see here I'm bending it and my wire is basically bending back. So that means this wire is maybe not strong enough. So you can see here I'm bending it and the wire is bending back. So I think I'm going to probably use a slightly thicker piece of wire, but that's a really nice tip to remember. So for instance here, I'm bending this, and you can see how the trunk is bending and the wire is not bending back. So you can see it's a nice thickness to wire with. But again, sometimes you put some wire on and it just doesn't, work for you. Again, don't be too hard on yourself. Just take the wire off and start again. But I'm going to use this thickness of wire. This is about 4 mils, so it's quite a nice thickness. I'm going to measure how much wire I need. I could keep the roll on, but especially for beginners, sometimes measuring is a bit easier. You tend to waste a little bit more wire, but that's also okay. Rather make it easy. Bonsai is already so daunting, so make it as easy as possible. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the wire into the soil. I have done other videos on this, but it's always nice just to do it on different species and so on. And I thought, either way, I have to do this, start wiring these junipers. So I thought, why don't I just take you along on the journey? But I'm basically sticking the wire into the soil, about 2 centimeters deep. I'm coming around the main trunk, missing all those small little branches. Again, this is very much, the tree's still in development, so we really don't need to stress too much. This tree is going to be growing for quite a while. And I'm basically going to go all the way up as far as possible. I'm going to kind of stop here. You can see this is the new leader. It's a slightly younger growth. I'm going to stop at that point, grab my wire cutters, just to snip that off. And now I'm going to do some drastic bends. So either we could potentially wrap the wire up again. We could take another piece of wire and basically go up the same pattern as this wire over here. Or if the wire is strong enough, then that's okay. You can only use one piece of wire. Alrighty, so this is the point where a lot of people hold back. But I challenge you to be bold when doing this. Give it a go, see how far you can push the tree, and I can tell you now they're super, super resilient. So you're not going to have a problem. So something people don't do is they basically don't bend the tree right at the bottom of the base here. We really want to give a nice bend right at the bottom so we don't have like this awkward straight section, and then from there on you have these beautiful curves. We really want to give quite a nice bend, fairly towards the bottom of the tree. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to bend over my thumb just like this, and I kind of want to get this to really be as close as possible. So kind of when it swells, the trunk can kind of almost join up with the other section. So while I do this, I'm just waiting to see that nothing breaks. And I'm really giving it quite a drastic bend. So right now, it pretty much just looks like one big giant mess. But that's kind of okay. That's kind of what we want. We want one big giant mess for now, because then later on, we're going to clean it up, we're going to style it, but we literally just want to give a really nice big bend in it. So you can see how I've really compacted that tree in, and I've really given it quite a bit of movement. So, for instance, now, in my opinion, I could probably take away that sacrificial branch we spoke about in the beginning, because it's kind of just getting in the way now. So we kind of can clean it up just a touch more. But I want it to be a big mess. I want it to look bushy because I still want the tree to thicken up over time. So I've really, really given it quite a bend. I'm going to see if I can even give it a little bit more of a bend. I'm really going to be quite drastic. And I will do a little close-up for you guys shortly. At this point, you'll also see that your wire kind of shifts all over the place, but it's fine. We don't have to be perfect at the moment. Just kind of seeing what I want to achieve. Cool, so that's got a lot of movement in it, which is looking really, really cool. Let me come in and do a little bit of a close-up for you guys. So you can really see, I mean, I've given it quite a drastic bend. Really given it some nice curves in there. And now think about how cool this little tree is going to be when it thickens up, starts swelling. But you can see how far you can really test these little trees. So it may not look like much right now, but I promise you now, you're going to set up your trees for much, much better future success. It's going to look so cool in the future. So let me just do another one. I've got another smaller juniper, and I'm basically just going to do the same exercise for you, so you guys can just see, you know, some more curves and shapes to your trees, but have fun with the process. I always say, you know, this is enjoyable. Enjoy that process. You can see I've got a much younger one, not as many more, you know, mature branches. So I'm basically just going to clean up anything right on the base over here. Because you can see when you compact the tree in from wiring it, you waste a lot of the branches at the bottom. So I'm just going to clean up everything right at the bottom. I'm not going to need as much as, you know, such a thick piece of wire. Cool. So you can see I've got a nice little stem or trunk. I'm going to take the slightly thinner piece of wire that I had. You can see if I push it down, the wire doesn't pop back up. The wire is going to be strong enough. And you can put a fairly thick piece of wire on when doing this. Measure how much I need. Come right at the bottom. And I'm going to come and give it a good old wiring up the trunk. So you can also start this when the tree's fairly young. It's just going to help the process. You can see I'm not overthinking the wiring. I'm just wiring. And this time, remember to start wiring right from the base. So I'm really going to come as far down as possible. Now, I can bring it up over there. Awesome. So you can see I've really compacted it down, but now it's another little one, and I'm going to allow this to grow for a lot more years. Obviously, I'll take the wire off when the trunk has set nicely. I'm then not going to rewire. I'm going to allow it to strengthen again, and then we'll come in and start styling the tree when it's at that point. So this is kind of what separates an average bonsai and a great bonsai. These bold movements. You know, we really want to get some nice movement in the tree, and I promise you now, you're going to thank me later. So I challenge you all to go get a little sapling or a little cutting or a little seedling and just give it some amazing movement. You obviously don't want to try this on all species, but junipers work really, really well for this exercise. Allow it just to grow, and I promise you now, you're going to have an epic bonsai at the end of it. So I hope you guys found this helpful. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a beautiful day.